Hey, this is Troy Erickson from emaillistmanagement.com. And today we have another awesome, super unique interview that kind of has to do with copywriting, definitely has to do with email marketing, but more about finding hidden revenue or lost revenue, right? Because every single business is making money, but there's probably more money that they're not making because it's fallen through different cracks. And my guest today is somebody who I've known for quite a few years now, met at a lot of different events, kind of started in copywriting, but found out like, hey, I have this special, unique ability to just help people stop losing their money. And that's what he does. He's built a lot of softwares, automations. Just last year, he helped a client add 40% to their revenue. Now, he can't say how much it is, but I know this guy works with a lot of big people, so it's probably a good chunk of change just in finding lost revenue. So he's
Yeah.
known as the cowboy, and I'm happy to have Robert Segelquist on the show.
Howdy, howdy. What's going on, Troy?
Hey, yeah, thanks for coming on, man. This is cool because a lot, I talk about email list management and I talk about a lot of different things outside of copywriting that are just like really, really important for business owners. So, I know how I got into it, but I'm kind of curious, like how you transitioned from just doing writing to also doing like strategy and automation and finding money.
Hey, Ian, I can blame Ian family mostly. Um, which, learning copy and copy accelerator. I think that was where you and I really met was through copy accelerator. And then going through some of Ian's family stuff. And the he gets into a lot of it. He touches a lot of things with like, hey, here's an idea of things you can find. And I kind of went down that squirrel rabbit hole of like, oh, cool, here's all the places that you can find. And I have a quote unquote checklist of probably 40 or 50 places to look at a company and just say, hey, look, these are the things that people don't necessarily know exist or opportunities. Um, a dumb one, for example, is suppression segments. So, hey, today we're going to mail for water bottles. Well, we mailed for water bottles 2 weeks ago and people bought water bottles. So, suppress our water bottle buyers today because they don't need to buy another water bottle. But if they've already bought a water bottle, let's send them a different product today. So people either aren't even suppressing that group, so they're increasing their unsubs or people that don't want to hear from them because they already bought a water bottle, it's not relevant. And if they are suppressing, they're not mailing that group. So mail that group something. And that's just an easy way to look at, easy example to talk about. But just there's probably 40 or 50 places in most companies I've talked to that just don't have all their holes filled, all their plugs in, and you just go in and start sticking fingers in holes, and before you know it, there's way more money flooding up than there was before.
Yeah, definitely. What are a couple of your favorites out of the 40 or 50 that are just like, oh my gosh, people are losing so much money, you have to fix this?
Yeah. Suppression. One of the things actually I picked up from you was unsubscribe pages and 404s. I don't know if you talked about 404s, but 404 pages are fun because they're just an easy way to throw an offer in. And if you don't have an offer to throw in, go find a random affiliate offer for a memory supplement and drop it on that page.
That's
Like,
funny.
hey, you don't know how you got here. Here you go. Um, Things like that. Suppressions, and then getting into segmentation. And this really segmentation is what I really enjoy, and it's really hard to explain that without getting further into like technical stuff. But there's a lot of segmentation you can do, and thinking about segmentation within a company that allows you to find places that you're not mailing or people you're not mailing on a regular basis, um, or mailing in a way that is relevant, a la the water bottle spot.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, you have these 40 or 50 places to look to find hidden revenue, but I know you're also like the automations guy. So, like, what are some of the things that you help clients build when it comes to automations that are really important?
Um, One of the things is split testing within automations. So people don't often do that. They throw a welcome email up and they or their welcome sequence up and they never go back and look at, hey, can we split test a better subject line or with that subject line a different creative so that we get more out of that. And then outside of that, little little relevant time points. And so if it's, hey, you clicked this email and didn't buy, or maybe you've clicked an email about water bottles 3 or 4 times now, let's send you down a 2 or 3 day sequence about water bottles because you haven't bought them yet. So it depends on what the relevancy is to the client and what their branding and product and positioning is. And obviously, that's a very DR thing. If you're more ecom, you may not do that. It depends on what your fit is. But things like that, things like abandons from the pages. So your abandons and your declines that people don't always capture. The number of people that don't have abandoned carts set up is disgusting. Um, or they have one stock email from whatever they're using. Hey, I'm on Klaviyo, and here's this one stock email that says, hey, you didn't finish checking out. And it's like, all right, let's go put 4 or 5 days in there because they will potentially buy it. I can't guarantee they're going to buy it, but they will buy it if you remind them several times. Where if you send them one with a generic email, or if you wait 96 hours to send it, because I don't want to bother my customers. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but they're not customers because they didn't get to buy in the first place. So things like
That's
that
so
are
true. There's so many different little things like that. And it's like, gosh, if you just bring somebody on the list and you remind them that they forgot something and you answer a couple of FAQs and show a couple of testimonials, like it makes a massive difference. So it's really important.
and
The
we
one thing that
the guys like us know that, and we talk about it and laugh about it. And you talk to visitors like, I can't do that. I'm going to bother my customers. And it's like, I promise you, they're not going to be bothered by it. If they unsubscribe, then who cares anyway?
exactly, yeah.
So
A lot of people need to get over the whole like, oh, people are going to unsubscribe and they're going to hate me forever and I'm going to annoy them. And it drives me nuts, you know?
so I always compare it to a race car. Okay. You can have a race car in the garage that just sits there and it looks pretty and it fires it up when you turn the engine on, and all it does is sit there, but you can't make any money with that race car. You take that race car out and you drive it either on a drag strip or a round track, and you got to put a new door on it or you got to put a new tire on it. You won money because you raced, but you replace a piece now and then. But if
Yeah,
it's just sitting in the garage, all you can do is impress your friends with.
that's so true. I like to view it like real estate, right? Like it's sitting there, it's depreciating. But if you put it to
Right.
use, is somebody going to get mad somehow? Maybe, but it's definitely worth it to just
Right.
use the things that you're building and paying for. Anyway,
Use the thing you have.
um,
Exactly. No, that's a very good way to look at it too.
now, I know that you've built a fair number of just for anybody who's like, all right, like I could try an automation. I know that you've like built your own like automations and softwares and tools. I mean, I don't know how many it is at this point, but I'm kind of curious.
The two full software, well, one full software, one project is tabled right now, and then I have a data management system I've created within Airtable. Um, the first one I built was before I knew what I was doing with marketing, and it was a capture tool for Facebook groups to capture your 3 questions and send it to your ESP. Um, that still exists. I don't even want to think about that headache right now. The second one that I recently tabled was a attribution table, an attribution tool actually for tracking revenue for affiliate sends. So when you send somebody else's product, being able to know, hey, that I sent it. The problem of an affiliate, if you're not you, but whoever might be listening to this isn't familiar with this, is you send an email to 10,000 people, 3,000 open, 200 click, 25 buy. You don't know who those 25 are. You just know that you had 25 purchase events. And I built an attribution system to do that. However, with other worldly high ends right now, there's just not enough time to manage it and grow it and get it going. So that project's currently tabled. Um, although I could be persuaded to build that internally for somebody if they wanted it. So call me for that. Um,
A custom
but
Hyros.
effectively, that's what it is. It's and Hyros is for ad rev and ad attribution, but this is just for email attribution. So it
Gotcha.
was very much the same thing. Um, and then my other thing is my data tables that I track in Airtable, which is really, I think we were talking about the revenue I added to that client earlier, and I think that's where it comes from is just knowing what performs well and being able to look at stuff historically and say, hey, this did really well, and let's send it again, or let's tweak it and send it again. Um,
Yeah.
so the data management side of that is really a fun part for me.
Okay. And it sounds like obviously you're excited about this new one you're building. And we chatted about this before we went live. And nobody's ever done this before on an interview, but if you want to go ahead and share your screen and show people how it works, and I'm curious myself. So go
Okay.
ahead.
So let me preface this is not real data, quote unquote. It's I mean, some of this was spun out of a client and it's mixed. So don't pay attention to any of the RPMs or like these are just fake numbers. These are not real numbers. Like these sends that look really big or have really high RPM, they're not real. It's just artificial data so that I can show this stuff in a working fashion. Also, RPM, revenue per thousand. So I like to work off that because it's a standardized number. It's not EPC, it's not open, it's not clicks. It's literally we send this to 1,000 people, we make this much money. Um, just to kind of frame why that's kind of the number I work off of. Hide this, that's just a given number field to make a link. So effectively what this is it's the table that I build off to work from in Airtable, and it allows me to see. So if I want to go, say just for purposes of this conversation, I have a sleep buyer group, heart buyer group. I don't have a non-buyer group showing in here, but I have that. and I want to see what sends I've done for Java Burn in the past. Java Burn is a diet offer, affiliate offer. So this is showing me by revenue base, so sorted by revenue, all the sends I've done to that group. This is data back to 12/1. And then this is a queued send that hasn't happened yet. Obviously, it's in the future, but it allows me to look at this and go, hey, cool. These have all done really well. Now, by date, I can see that as well. So I can see when I sent, hey, I sent coffee last. What was so Death of Black Coffee? Death of Black Coffee did really well. I sent coffee a couple times. Let me try that subject line again, or let me try this one that I've only sent once. That it's a different creative. And then what this also allows me to do is come into my creatives and go to my Java Burn and say, hey, look, this creative, I've sent it one time, but it did really well on an RPM. I've sent this other one 11 times. It's done not as well. So let's try this again. Then I would go that one and go back and say, oh, cool. Look, that's that same one. That's that JVBO2. Where's that in here? It's in here somewhere. Yeah, it's this one because it's not, can't see it. So, hey, this did really well. Let's try it again. But this system at scale allows a whole lot more data analysis of things, especially for somebody coming in. Say you come in to run an account that's been existing for 5 or 10 years. There's no way you can manually look back at stuff that was sent 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago with any relevancy and tracking what's going on. But with something like this, I can look back at it and go, oh, cool, you haven't sent this creative in 24 months, but it did really well the last time you sent it. Let's try it again. So
Yeah.
this is just a fun little play toy I built that allows me to do what we do. And I mean, all these tabs, you can kind of see how I sort stuff out. So by revenue, by date, and then filter to the product. And then within your, I can sort down to calendar level and say, hey, look, this is calendar. This is what's going out for this group. This is what's going out for this group. This is colored by product so that I can kind of look at things visually and see what's going on. And then, I mean, I'm not trying to pitch Airtable on anybody, but I can come back, see all of my stuff. It just allows for a really functional view of everything. And then if you've got a team behind you, your writers, your QA team, your load team, whoever it might be, I can say all of these are sent. These are already scheduled. These are sitting in QA right now. These need to get written. I've already picked the product to go out on these days, and these are still empty. I need to load them. So it allows
Oh,
me to
okay. So everybody who's super detail oriented is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm following you perfectly. And even me,
probably
like I like to build automations and play with Zapier. But for the people that are like, okay, I know email is important. This is crazy, and I'm happy that there's somebody out there who does this. Like, what are the top like 1 to 3 things that you would pay attention to if you were new and you wanted to start tracking data like this?
1 to 3 things that I would pay attention to.
Like the most important
Right.
1 to 3 things.
A creative ID, having a creative ID system, um, product dash number effectively. It can get more complicated than that. You can go into like the type if it's a clicky versus a longer pitch type email, right? Um, and then maybe variants of that because you might do something that's, hey, my birthday's coming up, and that one does really well, and you can use that same angle, but hey, it's Christmas now. So that's the celebration is the thing, and then here's why it's gonna, here's whatever it might be behind that. So you might do variants of that somehow. But a creative ID, subject line tracking, um, I like to work off of a central bank of subject lines. So instead, not creative based where this has its 3 subject lines, but all of my subject lines are one big long table because I might want to use this on 5 different creatives. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, definitely. Just like it's funny too, because the theme that I'm getting here is like you just want to look back at your winners and double down on what works and just tweak things that already work rather than reinventing the wheel every single day.
Exactly. And doing data like this allows you to do that. And most people don't have anything anywhere near this, as I'm sure you've seen before. Um,
Yeah.
if they
Yeah,
have any
most people
tracking
don't
outside of their
track.
ESP, yeah, if they have any tracking
Yeah.
outside of their ESP, it's nothing. And then probably the third thing I would add on to that is automation of data back into this, whether it's quote unquote manual automation of like actually feeding your data back in your open rates, click rates, or if you can automate it with an API from ActiveCampaign, Mariposa, Klaviyo, whatever, and feeding that back in here so that, excuse me, you can come back and look at this and see those numbers like I was showing you a second ago. And you're not just building this out as because this is serving both as a workflow tool to make sure it gets done, and then data analytics on the back end to make sure that what happened was good and is good going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Now, if
Anyway,
somebody's like, "Oh my gosh, I need one of these built for me," or they're like, "I have a question about automations. I want to ask Robert," like, where should they go? How do they contact you?
findlostrevenue.com. That's the central easiest way to get a hold of me, or Robert at Find Lost Revenue, or find me on the Facebook machine, Robert Segelquist. I think my name will be tagged on this video on YouTube, wherever.
Of
Um,
course.
so that would be three best ways to get a hold of me right there.
Awesome. Um, any closing words for people who are like, I need to track better and I need automations built?
You should have started yesterday. What's the old joke about a tree, or the old saying about a tree? You should have built a tree, planted a tree 20 years ago. But if you didn't plant it 20 years ago, the next best day is today. Stuff like this, you just got to get started. It's a big daunting task, but the sooner you start tracking, the better off you'll be. It's just it's a whole different game. So the sooner you do that, and the sooner you will find one of the things that allowed me, that client that I added 40% to, one of the things that allowed me to do that was literally going back 2 and 3 years and saying, hey, this creative performed really well. It might need an update. The product may have changed a little bit, or the offer may have changed a little bit, but like, let's grab that product or grab that creative and try it again. Because if it did really well back then, we haven't sent it, it hasn't fatigued. Let's try it again. So you may have winners sitting that you did that same. You sent them 2 years ago, and for whatever reason, you didn't send it again for 6 or 8 weeks, and now it's fallen out of your memory and you forget that it exists, but the data knows it's there. So that would be the next, yeah, start now.
There we have it. It's always a good answer. Start now. And you could do that at findlostrevenue.com. So,
Revenue.com.
all right. Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. And I think this is probably very enlightening for people. So thanks to
Appreciate it,
everybody
Troy.
for watching, listening, etc. And connect with Robert.